All right, well, haven't done one of these in a little while, but I am kicking it off, and I am kicking it off with a man who goes by many titles, Dylan Daly, or Madcat, or, as he was known for a very long time, the most talented player in Europe. First of all, Dylan, how are you?
I'm good, Bryce. Usual stuff, mate. Usual
Awesome.
stuff.
Awesome. All right. Well, the great thing about you, Madcat, is the fact that you have quite a long history in esports, and it's time to kind of go back and talk a little bit about your start and where you came from. Now, the first time I was aware of you was back in kind of the Mac and Toby days. Way
Yeah.
back then, where you were kind of the young gun coming to the scene. Here is that kind of your start into the professional scene? Because if I remember correctly, you came to LAN and placed pretty high straight away.
My first event was ECL 3. I think that was your first event as well.
Yeah,
We
you did
came.
better than I did.
I think it was top 12, but I think we could have come top 3 at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we would have won the one game we should have won, which was against Dope Goat and that, I think we would have probably could have won the event because I think we was the only team to actually slap Fnatic about back them days. But then after when I played sixth with Momo, which is a big achievement if anyone knows how good Momo is at card. And then yeah, then Mac and Toby picked me up on Modern for free.
Yeah, that was the interesting thing. 'Cause I said not a lot of people, even now, kind of come in and do that well straight off the rip their first LAN event. And you kind of that was like the kind of the catalyst for a lot of people instantly looking at you, Matt Cat. Now, jumping forward a little bit to kind of the next kind of time that you really kind of start showing up, it was the MW3 time, and it was the team at the time that was called Cloud. Now that was, if I remember correctly, it was you, Zanity, Shane, and I've lost who the fourth was.
No, this was on Black Ops 2.
Was that
Cloud
Black
was
Ops?
Black Ops 2.
Oh, sorry,
That was
Cloud
with
was Black Ops 2.
that was with Josh, Xanity, and Shane.
That's right, actually. If we go back to Modern Warfare 3, that was the time the biggest achievement you had on that game was beating Optic. The only time
Yeah.
an American team had been beaten in an international. Obviously, a feat that you've since managed to do again. But all right, let's go back into that MW3 team then. Let's talk about it. What was that was Flux, Josh, and Rich that was joining you on that squad.
Yeah.
Interesting, because obviously two of those have gone now, and Josh has been here and there in the scene still. What was it like back in those days? Because I remember catching you at EGL 5, and you were laughing on main stage losing to Apex NA, which is Optic. And you were like, I don't even mind losing this. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I think at them times, I think if I remember, Mac and Toby only used to play 2, 3 times a week,
Yeah.
and that was for only like 2, 3 hours. So practice-wise was absolute minimal back in them days. And then when we come against the Apex NA team, they literally just, as much as you try and compete against a team and you want to win, we already played them in the loser bracket, and I think Scump just dropped just an X amount of kills, which like every game has like a 40 bomb, 50
Yeah.
bomb. He hit like the best one you could get on that game, which was I didn't understand it. I think we got like nine nil on CTF. It was just stupid.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a learning curve that event. I think it was a learning curve for every team that played them at that event. And they really showed us that we need to change the way we think about COD and how we approach scrims and the game in general.
Yeah, that was actually one of the main catalysts in changing the European mindset, right? In going to this people like, we have now found a level that we cannot reach, so we have to go further.
Yeah.
And speaking of further, obviously that leads us on to that win, EGLA. I think there was like almost 100 teams there from something like 17 different countries. The Americans all came over, so it was actually a really stacked roster back in those days. One of the biggest events that had been in Call of Duty for a long time before Activision got involved. And obviously, we go down to it. We go all the way down to Seatown, and you guys walk away with it. How big was there kind of that for you in that time frame?
At that specific time frame, it was the best thing you could. It's the best thing you could possibly do, because Modern Warfare 3, if anyone that's listening doesn't really know what really happened, EGL was the only event for the game,
Yeah.
including I-Series and the foreign events. But in the prime of its game, I think after like March, EGL was the only event really going where people attended in massive amounts. So for it to do that and then to beat the team that had literally whitewashed every team before that was just it was just a moment to remember. Like money wise, it weren't money back then. Like
Yeah.
people realized that was for like £700. I think we got out of that.
Well,
Like so, the
I
the
think that's
money just weren't nothing to do
yeah.
with it.
Well, I think that's one of the biggest things here is that people right now downplay things like that because of the money. But the level of competition back then still was very high in terms of the players that are actually turning up. Like you're talking about the best in America came over to play. Like, obviously nowadays that'd be like Illuminati's, Optics and stuff. But back then it was a lot of the same players, admittedly, kind of came over to play as well. So that was like an incredible achievement. And the last time it had been done was GameStop back in MW2. And even then that was, going for 25k over America. And even then the rules weren't perfect for us guys as well. But that was one of the big cementing of your, one of your big foundations of your career, I think, going forward as well. You've just taken a big scalp there. You moved into Black Ops 2. And like I said, the next time I kind of remembered you on Black Ops 2 was that Cloud team. You didn't even, I don't think you had an org at that point. You were negotiating, I think, with Epsilon at the time. And obviously that turned into the Epsilon squad. But you turned up and you just started taking people down. No one really expected it from you guys at that point.
Yeah, it was Black Ops 2 at the start was a bit of rough because we were 17, I think I was 17,
Yeah.
Josh was 16, and we couldn't do the COD champs thing, so we got left out in the dry like that. So it really meant performing at that EGL event because it was a week before COD champs, and after
Yeah.
COD champs had done, everyone would remake their teams. So it was like kind of we had to perform just not even as individuals, we kind of do it as a team to stick, even just to keep a team. So it was good that we performed at that event.
Yeah.
It was a good event. Yeah, as you said, we was orgless. I think Kurt APOC helped us get to that event, and
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, didn't APOC help you get to that event? And then APOC ended up coaching the other team you were against on main stage.
yeah, like because I think it was the morning of the event, the org that we were supposed to go under, that we played the week before under. I think it was like Nemesis or something.
Mm-hmm.
The guy pulled out on us, so I rang up Kurt on the phone at like 6 a.m. in the morning at the bus stop on the way to college. Like, you need to come through with something, like even just get us a hotel room for the night out or just for the weekend. It'd be perfect. And he got us a hotel for the weekend. He had his own hotel, so the other players could sleep in there, and we just went out and done our thing.
Yeah, and again, this is one of the ones. Obviously, now Xanady ended up disappearing from everything. Let's be honest. In the end here, but the players on that team are still around today. Like Jerd was one of the players on that squad. You also had Shane coming through, and I suppose if people are wondering who Cloud were, the best thing to look at is the Epsilon team that transformed into, that went and took down Impact, and didn't just take him down. There was some of the best hard points anybody's ever seen in that series. You first of all, you 100-point clubbed them. And then I think the Yemen hardpoint was probably one of the closest, greatest finishes we've ever seen. Back when Black Ops 2 had the shotguns and everything going on.
Yeah. That series was weird because we went like 90 some up seed in the open bracket, which was absolutely a joke. Like we was like the best team in the open bracket by a country mile, but I guess there was no way for them to really seed us.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that Prof got like 70 something seed, which meant that if we both went in the bracket, we'd get last seed and they get the first seed and they get the second seed. And they end up pulling VVV. Like, come on, bro. Like, VVV, like, they would have got mopped. But then we got Impact, and they really just exploited our weakness, which was S&D, and then they managed to clutch up in the CTF. So,
Yeah.
and then we ended up in the loser bracket, and a lot of things went wrong and a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it was a typical European story, right? You take one loss and then everything goes to bits for quite a while.
Pretty much.
And I think that was the start of, especially when I used to speak to you a lot back then, was you just were just so angry with the way that Europe was kind of conducting itself, and nobody was able to kind of keep bridging that gap consistently between Europe and North America. Something that obviously we're now seeing in relative time. So it's kind of taken 3-4 years to get back up here, but then we kind of go on to a part of your career where you kind of became a mercenary, and this is probably one of the lower points of your career, in my opinion. Because here's the thing: if people don't know, back then, Madcat was widely reputed as the most talented player in Europe, and it was said frequently by pretty much everybody at the time. The only difference being, and I'm sure Madcat, you know, this is something that obviously you've matured from now, is you had a little bit of an attitude which it kind of made you difficult to play with in the long term. But you would join a team, smash an event, and then that team would go to bits afterwards, or you would leave. Kind of want to kind of take people through what your mindset was back then? You know, what was the issue? Was it just you just couldn't have anyone live up to you, or you just couldn't find a place to kind of click?
You know what? It was a combination of a whole different things back then. I was quite young. I think just turned 17. I think
Yeah.
maybe just turned 18. I think I was 17 going towards 18, and I had a lot of things personally going on, which didn't help the situation. Plus, I ended up being in a situation where, as you said, no one really. I didn't feel like anyone that I was playing with was really where I wanted to be,
Hmm.
or they didn't have the similar mindset of how I wanted to really go and compete. Like,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean. Just different stuff really, and anger issues, that sort of stuff. So it
Yeah.
wasn't the best of places for me at that point.
No, no. I mean, there was even like a point where, like, obviously, you know, everyone knows how kind of talented you are and just how good you are, and it was a point where there was even struggle. People were wondering whether or not to pick you up because of how you were going to mesh in the future, and whether or not that was going to
Yeah,
be a short-term investment or is this going to finally be the long-term investment. Now, fortunately, that period is over at the very least, and kind of moving into more recent periods now. Let's talk about the Millennium team, and I know, you know, from what we've spoken about before, the Millennium team, you are probably one of your biggest regrets. It was Call of Duty Champs, simply because you never knew all year you were having this great Millennium squad. Comes the biggest tournament of the year, of course, tragedy strikes. Swanee isn't there. Kind of take us through what was going through your mind, which you kind of had to go into that big competition after having such a, kind of, let's say, prestigious Millennium squad going forward and a lot of expectations on your shoulder.
you know what? Before that event, I think we had flopped at every American opportunity we had.
Yeah.
I think the only international event we did decent at was ASWC, and that wasn't even that great. But I literally thought going to that COD champs, it was the best opportunity uh that we'd had as a team going into towards that event. And then Swan not coming was a bit of a just a kick in the balls, really.
Hmm.
But at that point, you know, it was something that we couldn't have changed. Swan was never going to turn up, and we just had to go in there with every bit of confidence that we had in us to do well. It was at that point, it was just turn up and play, and just put your heart on the line and see how far we can get.
Yeah. Yeah, I can kind of see, you know, we were all devastated to kind of hear that we were all looking forward to this big Millennium playoff, and we want to see how guys you were going to progress, because there was that kind of holy trinity at the time, which was you, Splice, and Infused. Obviously, you know, Splice managed to kind of smash and go all the way to second, and everybody
Yeah.
was saying, you know, we never got to see you directly against them. You know, those full squads match up on LAN, and that's what everybody kind of wanted to see, and we were robbed of it, in my opinion. But yeah, all right. Let's kind of talk about this now, because for me it was interesting. This next point, when Swanee wasn't there, you picked up Miracles,
Yeah.
and your game types ended up transforming the way that you played them. You, from what it looked like, you would seem to click more in hardpoint. Your S&D was kind of here or there. Obviously, your set strats
Yeah.
wouldn't always work. I think it was your uplink that went to absolute bits. Did that kind of give you an insight into the fact, you know, maybe we need to structure our team differently? Because obviously you've had this opportunity to kind of switch out Miracles and Swanee couldn't be more different players. Did that give you insight into, you know, future team building for you?
Oh, do you know what? When we got to the event, we practiced, and we was in the practice rooms. I think we had like
Yeah.
one like I think we had 4 hour practice, and we didn't play no S&D. We just played a hard point and a bit of uplink. And from when we was warming up in the hard point against, I think it was a few top teams, we literally we were sitting there like it's just like we've been playing together for a while now. It looks like we've actually been playing for a few months, like not a day.
Yeah.
We went into the tournament and it showed. S&D was a bit of a wobble. I
Well,
think.
yeah. I mean, you couldn't have any kind of set
Yeah,
strats.
it was just one of them. It either would have worked or it didn't work, and unfortunately, sometimes it just didn't work for us on the day. And then uplink, I think the way we used to play in the Millennium was a bit weird compared to every other team.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I mean, because here's the thing. Now, I got access to some back end information about your team, from some stats that were compiled, and it was like really weird stats, like times on wall runs, times with the boost, and everything like that. Right? I got to see that right at the end of the
yeah,
game, and I think you guys had the lowest amount of times doing like the wall runs and all that kind of mechanics and stuff, just out of all of the like top level teams. So yeah, you guys kind of had your own set. You were very, very structured in the way you guys like to play and set up and kind of hit those rotations.
Yeah, we was quite different, but that's the way the team was set out. I think at that point, season two onwards, everyone was out of position in terms of how they wanted to play the game.
Hmm.
Everyone was kind of like forced to play that way because of how the team was. Then, like the way the team was the way the team was already set my mind on where to go after that.
Hmm.
I don't feel like I was confident in us. In Not confident. Obviously, I'm always confident, but it's just not confident of how far we can go. Like our glass ceiling was lower than it should have been. You
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I can see that because obviously you ended up making that change.
yeah,
Once obviously Swanee was taking the hiatus anyway. It seemed like you guys had kind of made the decision that you needed a fresh change. Now that meant as we move into kind of the most recent period for you, Madcat, anyway, that meant Tommy out.
yeah,
Swanee was out anyway, and you teamed up with half of the Splice team that kind of came out of the gate out of a big XP. They decided to split. Clearly, they were having internal issues. So you took on Bats and Josh. Now, Josh, obviously, I don't know how many people know this, but you've kind of been linked with him almost your entire career at various points.
yeah.
You just kind of like two stars, just constantly kind of attracted to each other in the long term. And then you split and you come back together again. But it has left a good amount of chemistry within your squad. Now, the issue being is that when this Splice, the Splice team did really well, kind of to begin with. But then you had a few issues kind of going down the line with Josh. What exactly happened in those first few months?
Before the game even came out, he approached Epsilon asking if they would pick him up. That got shut down by Epsilon management,
Hmm.
and yeah, he didn't really want to be in the team. Pretty much, he kind of like distanced himself from the team, just really put us in an awkward situation as a team. So and he got his chance to leave, and he left, and then yeah, that was it.
That's fair because obviously like that was it was a bit of a schism at the time. Obviously, you guys, from what I understand, weren't entirely happy with how that went down, and we saw a little bit of it boil over on the Twitter and so on and so forth. But it was for us, it was like really confusing because we were like, this team should be working so well. And once this all came out, it was like, yeah, there's clearly internal issues that are forcing the team. And you said about the glass thing earlier, it's almost like yours got lowered because of the issues inside the team. Now, this obviously this kind of gave you the opportunity to make a big change up and a team up that a lot of people wanted to see in Europe and internationally. You picked up Zero after a lot of talk going on from what I understand behind the scenes, and that left you with a. And I know you hate this word, and I know you hate the saying "God
Our
Squad."
squad.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was coming.
and I think the reason you hate that, Madcat, is because you've been linked to so many European ones over time.
Yeah,
Simply because if you try to attract the best players and you're considered one of the best players, it's always going to happen. But a lot of people were super excited about this team. Zero had just come off, great plays with his team. He come out of the Orbit team that has fallen apart, Red Reserve in the end, and finally got on with you. And then we looked at it, and you guys seemed to. It was almost kind of like a different team just from one player. Was that a lot to do with chemistry, or was that to do with Trey bringing something new to the team? What was the difference coming straight out of the gate?
I think it was a combination of uh, like we like a player leaving that didn't want to be in the team, which if a player doesn't want to be in the team, the chemistry levels go warm straight down,
Yeah,
and you kind of like it's hard to really make anything happen when someone doesn't want to be in the team, especially someone like Josh who, if he wants to be asked, you can tell when Josh wants to be asked. When Josh is going to be asked, you can tell when he's not asked. Like he's just an up and coming, like either up and down person. And we had his lowest point
yeah.
in our team, and we didn't really get much from him. So getting a player that wanted to be in the team was definitely a bonus for us. And uh, I guess traders wanted to make a point, and came in with a point, and we helped them make that point, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting you say that about making a point here because there were several players in that trade who wanted to do so. Obviously, your team wanted to make a point about how you could go further once you've made this team change.
Yeah.
Josh decided to go to Epsilon, a move at the time that a lot of people weren't sure with because Epsilon had a really rough start to the year.
Yeah.
And at one point, we didn't even know if they were going to qualify for the Pro League. And then obviously you had Zero coming out of Red Reserve, and he wanted to prove that he was every bit as big as kind of he was hyped up to be. And
Yeah,
he thought
because like when he left his team, there was a few things said between him and like his orbit team between the
yeah.
players, which if I was to say I'd wanna go and make that point because you put yourself in a pedestal that you
Yeah.
need to just keep yourself on at that point. So
Yeah, like I said, it was not always the most amicable of splits going on in that
yeah,
period of time. Like I said, a lot of conversations going on around that period. It was very kind of cool to see the back end of, and what didn't get put out in the public in there was kind of the things said to people, and people felt a bit betrayed and so on and so forth. Same with you guys and Josh, right? Even though you kind of got Zero in and it had one of the best runs for you after that. At the time, feelings were very high, and it's kind of hard to overlook that. But let's talk about this Josh thing here, because he ended up going to Epsilon, and I don't know, he molded that team, or he just added something to that team that kind of propelled them right up to the top here. Don't get me wrong, they were climbing fast anyway, right back up the rankings. And they kind of became your arch nemesis throughout here, because of and this is what people still don't get to now, is that team played a little bit weird compared to some of the other European teams, and it was difficult to play the other European teams and then play them and use the same strategy. You could play 5 European teams and then play Epsilon, and it'd be a completely different game.
Yeah, that team, like the way, like half of their gameplay was our gameplay, which Josh went and took with him,
Mm-hmm.
but it's because they would listen to everything that he would say, which made it work, which is sort of what I would gather that would happen when he left. I was like, they'd
Uh-huh.
listen to him, wherever Josh says goes, and if you've all got a game plan, you stick to it, you are gonna do well. If you've got the natural talent, you've got the gun skill, your teamwork is gonna work because you're all on the same page. So we already knew they was gonna be good if they listened to him, which they obviously would have because he made a big risk to join them, and that's what they wanted, that's what he wanted. So
Did it surprise you how good, considering obviously for the fact they ended up taking you down in a few European lands? Um,
no, not really. Like the I series was. I mean,
that
I'm
was
allowed to
mad, right?
swear. I'm allowed to
Yeah,
swear.
say what you want.
It
This
was
is
a bag of shit. Like our team was playing 3v4, but we won't get into that. And then the one with the Anaheim one was the one that I got pissed off. The I series was like more of an angry loss. Like
yeah.
it was something
That, 'cause
that
that was a
I
shock to me,
felt
right? Like, because
I
we knew that.
felt that couldn't change. But then the Anaheim one was quite weird as well because they actually got their best 2 maps at the start. It was like we was already 2-0 down behind
Yeah.
because we'd never beat them on them 2 maps.
Well, because
But
I
then
think the
yeah,
I Series one, if we quickly look at that one, that surprised me. Because I was hosting that event, and I was like, look, I know that Epsilon are up there; they are an elite level team in Europe at the
yeah,
moment. But we're talking about Splyce, you basically just kicked your way through that bracket as well. Like, I think you handed Fnatic one of the biggest losses I've seen them take, and it wasn't even close at most points. And then you get into it and you get 3-0, 3-0. That was a scoreline that nobody. I mean, don't get me wrong. There were people saying, "Oh, Epsilon are good." I was like, "Yeah, I get Epsilon are good, but who would have thought they would have double 3-0'd you guys?"
yeah. That I can't even talk about that one. That was a bag of shit.
Yeah, it wasn't. All right, let's move on then and kind of talk, because obviously after these few setbacks, we get into season 1,
Yeah,
and this is where Fuel the Jet, you guys kind of set a piece of European history, and it's probably definitely one of the highlights of that entire year for anybody in Europe, and I'm pretty sure it's probably one of yours. Season 1 went pretty well for you guys. A lot of people hyping you up. Your first week was it was good, and then you kind of fell down right at the end against Envy.
yeah.
What kind of happened in that last game? Because obviously everyone was like, you guys had the full hype behind you, and then I think you just ended up coming second in that group against Envy.
Yeah, we had a thing at, I think it was yeah, it was at I series and then it happened at season 1 groups. We had a thing where uh we wasn't really using our downtime as good enough as we should. Like I think I series I was the only one to even plug my controller in and warmed up, and then I ended up being the one without with a laggy controller, which was
Wow.
very annoying because I was the only one to warm up. And then before the last game at groups, we didn't warm up. We just sat
Hmm.
there and waited, and then we just come off a win. So it just meant that they just came out the gates hotter than us. So it was
And
kind
one of
of
those
messed
momentum
up
things, right?
ourselves. And yeah, then we got back was like whenever we have downtime, make sure that we set aside some time before we play to go and warm up and make sure that we're not rusty.
That's fair enough. I think it was probably a good kick in the pants for you guys, right? Coming into season one finals. Now, going into season one finals, you guys, and it's interesting to kind of see the difference in hype from week one of the Pro League to you guys going into finals. Now, obviously, that ended a very different way, but I felt like you guys were being overlooked then when you came in. Because going into season one finals, there wasn't as much hype from the casters and the analysts and some of the fans. I was like, they lost to Envious, but obviously Envious can go hot. Obviously, you guys ended up proving everyone wrong in that event, and it kept clicking. You had a great performance from Trey, season one MVP, and the rest of you. What was it about that event? Because like Bance was on fire. Yeah, from what I saw, you had one of your usual, which is consistency. You're usually consistently putting up hell numbers. Like you're usually just like a 1.1, and you'll just hit that like every game mode, regardless of how much you win or lose. I think one of your biggest things is that you are always able to just play your role.
Yeah.
But what was it? The team just clicked at that point. Was it the practice you got? Because you even said you didn't have the practice.
Oh, do you know what it was? It was really. I say a portion of it was the bracket. Come on, we didn't really play the best of teams, but we played who we played, and I think it was more the fact that I think we got EG and E6. Now, EG and E6 aren't your top tier one teams at that point.
Yeah.
So I guess them two games put us in the zone of competing that weekend. I mean, I wouldn't say if we got anyone else would lose, but to get them two teams first is a confidence booster. Then we went on to FaZe, and we didn't really expect to beat FaZe the way we did, which was a even more confidence booster. And then we went on to LG. Then to win two best of fives in that game takes a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
Like personally. And then they took it to game 5 against us, and
walked away.
we knew we had to win that. We knew we had to win that round 11. We just knew. I don't think anyone would have been able to do another best of 5.
No, again, that's like I said. I think people underestimate that, right? It's just how hard these games are, fatigue wise. They say, it's just playing games. But once you're in that zone, you are playing at the absolute peak of concentration, willpower, reflexes. Your heart's hammering, and they don't realize that's what people say about the difference between open bracket and championship bracket. Like, if you're in that open bracket, you're just fatigued and just playing at that level over and over and over again. And again, same thing with double best of fives, right? It's a momentum shift. You've got at least another hour and a half of playing and kind of getting yourself in that mental zone. But you know what, you guys pointed out. Like, what did it feel like taking away that win, that momentous win? Did it sink in straight away, or was it like an hour after you walked out of the venue?
No, it didn't even sink into like the week after. I think at that point,
because you look pretty mad on main stage. Obviously, we've all said that, right?
When we won, it was just like, okay, we just won. Like, I don't think that was the event we really thought we'd win. You know what I mean? Like the amount of events, international ones I've been to, I don't think that was the one. I've definitely thought before, this is the event to win, and that wasn't really one. You've been through that many points where you thought you'd go win the event that, when you do win, it's like, oh, yeah, this was a long time coming.
Yeah.
It was like definitely just that. Like, it just felt like it was a long time coming, and it was overdue, and there was nothing really to get happy about because how many losses we're taking to get there. So it was more of a relief that we've really done it than doing it.
I can see that. And obviously, like you came back and you come off a bit of a high there, and I think everybody started taking their breaks here. But I think the practice thing, like it was a big surprise considering the lack of practice you guys got. Obviously, you publicly admitted and said we just couldn't get European teams to scrim, and part of that was the way that the league was structured, and part of it was the fact that every team was taking like time off because they've been on such a grind recently and stuff. Did that ever kind of factor into your thing, like, oh, we are under practice going into this event?
You know what? Yeah, I definitely thought we was under practice. I mean, when you're at this level, you really want to get the best practice, and we know what the best practice is. So to really go into an event of that caliber and be under practice kind of annoyed us. Something that we couldn't really change personally, but it was definitely annoying for us.
Yeah,
especially our team was a team of grinders. Like, like I don't think I've never been on a team that's a team of grinders. Like, I love the grinders. Like, if you're not grinding, there's another team that is out there grinding. It's a simple fact. Like, not even the grinding. Like, when you come on, make sure you get the best practice, not just any practice. You get good practice. That even if a team's doing a double amount of hours, make sure that when you're practicing, that double amount of hours doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, make sure you're learning, right?
Yeah,
not
make
just
sure
not
you
just
learn
coming
it
and playing
properly.
publics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All right, let's kind of move on then from that kind of that momentous win and talk about. I believe it was Anaheim after that, and you ended up coming second.
Yeah.
Did that sting a little bit because it was the team you'd beat before, kind of coming through? How did that event go? Was there a small kind of like thing that just kind of tilted it one way or the other? You guys were still having a few breaks, too much for you. What were your feelings going to that event, coming off the win, and how it ended up?
Oh, I think going to that event, it was just let's just prove it wasn't a one-off, and let's just really do our thing. I think everyone's had the mindset of,
Well, there was a lot of people calling it a fluke, right? Season one, a lot of people calling season one a fluke, which would
oh
really
yeah, yeah,
irritated me.
oh yeah,
I
I
can't
think it
imagine what it was
was
like for you.
because we didn't play up to. That was the main reason. And then Anaheim was the mindset of let's win this event this time. Let's hope we play up to and go through them.
Yeah, and obviously you ended up coming second there, but it definitely cemented you guys as the elite level in terms of teams, and people were putting you first and second like multiple times, and top three of the year, and it was just one of these things where it finally was like, oh my god, this is where we get to. And obviously, like, you summed it up and say, Epsilon had given you great games all year. Can they do the same thing? Red Reserve with back on that kind of fixing path after that event, if I remember correctly. They started getting better and better, and for me, it was one of these things. It was just so great to see you guys that it wasn't just one event, and you could consistently, start taking down the elite level North American teams.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on then. Let's talk about what happened after that, because it wasn't smooth sailing after that. And some of this is in the fact that your team were no longer putting up the same numbers. I know that it almost from an outside point of view looked like Trey was in his own head a little bit. Was there an internal problem in the team? Did you change something? What kind of happened after that?
Do you know what? I don't know. Like, I want to say that Trey put himself on a pedestal he couldn't hold up to, and no disrespect, but that game we just played there, that's very hard to keep playing consistently that good.
Hmm.
I think if you look at everyone over the year, they had their downfalls in the year.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
think
'cause there were
everyone
there was some,
played.
there was something. I mean, you had a dip. Don't get me wrong, but you were at the top. There were other teams that fell off a cliff around the same time.
Yeah, so definitely everyone had their off games in that game. Even just individually, everyone had their
Hmm.
off maps, off games, series, couple series at event. I think Trey wasn't ready for that at that point. I think he was kind of like gassed up by everyone way too much. I think just people that shouldn't even be gassing him up. It was weird. Um, but yeah, I don't think he was ready to have a couple maps or series like that, and he kind of got into his own head.
Yeah, well, it was probably one of the things. Like especially he had a big spotlight on him, right? Like it wasn't like
Yeah,
everybody wasn't watching. He was MVP. And you were right. I think that kind of like I think a lot of players aren't ready for that, for the entire spotlight of the esport to just suddenly be like there. Coming into the event, people were looking and going, yeah, this is great. But after that event, like, he was probably the most scrutinized player going into the following events because of what he had done. And obviously, that's probably getting into his head. His Twitter would have been blowing up. So many people would have been talking about him before and after every single game. And yeah, he did seem, because he had that thing that people were criticizing. He kept changing his reticle on his gun. I don't know if you knew that was happening.
yeah, I didn't even know that was happening until like towards the end of the event. But yeah, definitely was at one point in the game was probably the best player in the game, no doubt. He was definitely performing like it, and I don't know. I I really don't know what happened at that. I think it was the group stage of season two. I
Hmm.
really don't know what happened, and
Yeah.
then following that, I just really just don't know what happened. Yeah, can't really speak for someone else's mind, but
No, what was let's talk about your feelings then. After coming down off that high, what were you feeling about, your placing, your positioning, how you were doing, and kind of the entire mentality of the team going forward?
like we knew there was something going on. Uh, I think like the best thing, like we would try and help him as much as we can,
Hmm.
but it's kind of like everyone has to kind of like help other people, but if you help someone else too much, you kind of forget yourself, which if all three of us do, then one player goes back on track, but then three players come off track.
Yeah.
which we tried, and then at one point it was sometimes a bit too much to try help him
Yeah,
because
plus,
how far it had been.
and I suppose there was also like the thing going on at the time, so you guys kept drawing breakout, right? Like, just to kick off
Oh
so many
yeah,
series, and
yeah,
that really wasn't helping you.
yeah. That
What
wasn't
was the
helping
block on
either.
that map? Was it just that it was just your weakest map, and every other team seemed really good at it, or because it was there was a period where it kind of went away for a little bit, and then it came back with full force, and you guys just could never click fully on it to the point where you're like confident going in.
You know what? It was either a mixture of one thing going wrong, it would either be close and one thing going wrong, or we'd get swept and people would just be losing their mind left, right, center. It was just one of them maps that if we got close, we'd make one mistake. If it was either a whitewash or close. We never really had like a average game on that map. It was either a whitewash or close.
Yeah, and that was one of the struggling things to watch. Like, how many times, obviously, watching the map rotation come up, you're not like, oh, for God's sake.
Yeah,
Like, it's just a mental block at the end there, because you're like, we know we've got to have a positive mindset going in, but it's difficult to have a positive mindset going in when we've got to play
it just
that map.
keeps
Yeah,
happening and keeps happening and keeps happening. You try everything you can do and it just keeps happening. And then at that point, you're like, you know what? Everyone do what you want on this map. Just literally do what you want and let's see what we can do on it. Like just do what you want.
yeah. All right, let's kind of move forward then and talk about the big event of the year. Now, you guys went out for a pre-LAN, which surprised the hell out of me because that came out of nowhere. And I was surprised you managed to get that many teams all organised, all over to America a week in advance. How was the pre-LAN? How did it go well? How did you feel about it? Because I know, obviously, like, I've been to pre-LANs with you before champs. And, I think you get on pretty well. There's a lot of talk about your cooking coming out of it, of course. But how was it for you?
Gee, the cooking was absolutely on point. But you know what? It was a shambles in terms of playing. In terms of playing, it was a shambles. Like, there's five other teams.
Yeah.
We never played Epsilon because we just never played Epsilon. I don't think it was good for us to practice against them. We practiced against them once, and that's when we start going in our slump. And I don't know if it was that. I think yeah, that was the reason why we ended up in a slump at one point. It was because we played Epsilon
Yeah,
for a week
I
straight.
heard that. I heard that you ended up changing your tactics to face Epsilon, and then you realised that because you'd changed the way you played, it'd been less effective against all the American teams.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yes.
interesting.
Then stop playing them because it was just absolute garbage, and I didn't even try when they start losing. It was just like playing kids. Well, it was playing kids, but literally playing kids. Uh, and then Millennium win our group. So that was another team down.
Yeah.
So that leaves three more teams. I think we played Fnatic once,
Hmm. Well, so this is the interesting thing that came
and then
out
it
of it.
was it was playing Elevate, and let's be honest, Elevate at that stage and not practice.
They're not your level. I think we
And
can all
then
admit
and
that,
then
right?
and then we was Red Visors counter at that point. Like their team and our team was we was their counter. Like they
Yeah.
couldn't beat us regardless of if we were bad or good.
Hmm.
So it was literally kind of a bad practice, but it wasn't all that bad because it was a good vibe bringing, especially
Yeah.
at the weekend we had at season two. We won one map out of seven,
Yeah.
from absolute last place at eighth, and it was just a chance to really bring a vibe back to the team. Not sure if that happened. I don't think it did.
Well, here's the interesting thing about that pre-LAN that for me kind of I was looking at it from the outside in, obviously, because you guys didn't invite me. Um, but
The offer was there.
but the thing about it for me was I didn't know how you guys were approaching it in terms of time played. Now I know from back, way back in the days how the Halo teams used to approach it. Like we're talking way back, like
Yeah.
straight ripping and stuff. And the stories come out of their pre-lands before major events were like, blisters. Just 12 13 hours a day. I was like, I guess they're not going to do that, but I was expecting maybe like 6 to 8 hours a day of what I like to call perfect practice, right? You're on LAN, you can adjust things on the fly, it's no big deal.
I think like out of every team that was there, we was the one that got the most practice out of it. I
Mhm.
mean, just in terms of talking about things and really crunching certain things down. I think we was the best team out of there. But I think we it was kind of like the practice that we was getting wasn't the
Mhm.
best. But probably because we never played Epsilon, but I don't think that would have really helped us to be honest, but wasn't really competitive.
Okay, that's fair enough. Let's talk a little bit about champs then, because going into champs, you guys were still massively hyped up. We wanted to see how all the teams did. My biggest takeaway from champs was, I think, and I'll be honest with you here, I was after looking at champs and looking at the games that I saw, which I think I caught a good portion of your games. I thought Jared may have had the best tournament I've ever seen him have.
Probably an IW, yeah.
Yeah, it was unbelievable how much he was just going in consistently, and he's probably one of the. Here's the thing, like everybody loves Jared, but he's still, because of the way he plays, his numbers are never that far up there unless he has an incredible game, because he's always the first. He is your pressure maker, in essence.
Yeah, especially on like a game like IW, he's not gonna. You can't really get the best out of Jared. Like Jared's one of them guys where you give him a platform to do something and he'll do it. But IW is one of them games where you get given the platform, you're either making one kill and dying, or you're just dying because you're front line. It's just
Yeah, and you got to make a trade, right? So
yeah.
he was almost in that position. But he had a great series. And let's talk about what was probably one of my favourite series, and I'm sure it's not your favourite series because you didn't win it. But the Splyce Optic game for me. Now I was actually casting a different game at the time, but we had your game up at the same time, and it was so difficult for me to do my job because that game was on, and it was fantastic to watch. Unfortunately, they just came into that tournament with unbelievable hard points.
Yeah, I think the first map they kind of outclassed us a little bit. I think I can't remember exactly how it went, but at one point we've been outclassed on that map.
You lost both hard points and the final S&D.
Yeah, so the first map we got outclassed a little bit. I don't think we was ready for that map yet. I don't think the way they really came to us, I don't think was ready. And then the S&D what map was the first? Might have been.
I'm trying to figure it out.
Oh no, it was what's that map? What is the map? It's the map with the bomb with the bike shop. Come on, man. The game. That's how much I want to forget that game.
I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember myself here.
The map with the bike shop.
Because I caught most of the hard points. Like I said, I was watching two games at once. I know exactly what map you're talking about now, and I don't remember its name either. The map with the bridge, right?
Yes.
Two professionals here. Can't remember the name of the map.
This is really bad.
It's IW. We'll just move on. like everybody else has. But no, that was the first S&D map, right? I'm sure it will come to us. Retaliation. Now it seems so obvious and we look horrific, but it's fine. We don't have to remember that name in 10 days. It's fine. Who cares?
Yeah, we played that map. I think every time we played them on that map, the whole year we beat them on. So we definitely was confident in that. And then it was uplink. I don't think it was scored.
That uplink was superb. There was that because that made the highlight reel with Joe where he uplinked upwards.
Was it throwback?
It was throwback. Yeah, it was throwback.
Yeah,
that was
I think it was Jared and Ben that might have went off. I can't remember.
Yeah, because Jared made the highlight reel because he killed a second, uplinked. He FTL'd upwards to get that second kill, and then managed to try to get the third player. But yeah, it was. But bearing in mind that was one of Jared's. I think that must have been Jared's favorite uplink map because I've always seen him go off on it, including that famous one where he kept beating people down on that map.
Yeah, and then we went on to the fourth map. There was one mistake, like I said, it's close, you make one mistake. Mm-hmm. One mistake happened. And then we went on to the last map, and what was weird is that everything they did, and we knew they were going to do, like, the night before I researched everything they did on the S&Ds, and we knew everything they was going to do. Mm-hmm. But I think there was one round that really set, like a tone for them to win. It was a round they pushed out of the bridge bomb and a throwback, and I knew they did that from previous VODs, and it just went down to just not making the trades at that specific point. So yeah, it was one of them maps.
Yeah, because that was one of the tournaments where points the tournament, like they were the winners of the entire thing, and you guys came very close to kind of fighting them off. And then obviously after that match, you unfortunately lost 3-2, which against Optic is not something that we sniffed at, and kind of spoke just how much firepower you were coming into that tournament with. You put on a better game than a lot of people did against them, which admittedly right now is probably a bitter pill to swallow. But in my opinion, it's a silver lining for the kind of highlight your team at champs. And then we kind of move on, right? Because you drop down into the losers bracket, and I think you play Epsilon here.
Yeah, we play Epsilon, yeah.
Yeah,
It was like the last two teams at that point.
Yeah, and it was it's one of these things like that was the time to beat Epsilon, like just to push you guys forward. Although you've taken losses all year, that was all right. We'll take this win, and even then, that was a close game between both teams had nothing left to lose, just threw everything into it. Was it a little bit nervous knowing that it was Epsilon you were going to drop into the lower bracket against? Because there were a lot of teams to win that lower bracket at that time that were considerably lower than them, in my opinion.
Nah,
I think Infuse was still in the bracket at that point, weren't they?
Nah, they just lost. I think just before we'd went there, they did lost in the same round just before. You know what? When we went that game, I thought, you know what, we ain't losing this. Like, there's just no way it was happening. No way it was happening. Like, I think, like, just losing that against them at that tournament, the last game of IW would have just been a joke. It would have just been like a anger in me that would have just kept going for them for this whole 3-4 month break.
Yeah.
So like, I think we went to the game, first map, put a clinic on, second map clinic, but we lost the second map. Don't really know. I think every round we won, I think I clutched every round, but you know, sometimes that goes that way. And then it comes to the uplink, and yeah, we won the uplink. It was what's the small map?
Throwback.
The smallest map. It only got played on uplink.
Oh, you put my knowledge through the ringer here.
Frost.
Frost. There we go. With Sub Bay. That's what I was about to say. Yeah,
and I think Joe clutched up on the OT.
Yeah.
We went into retaliation. I think some people were playing slow, played a bit like they started off slow, and then we just went to last map, and it was weird because there was something weird about the throwback between us. I can't really remember, but yeah,
was they like playing really aggressive on throwback, didn't they? You guys played a lot more passive.
I don't think they really played how we wanted them to play, and it just traded rounds.
That's when must have got tense.
And it came to 5-5, and I remember someone saying, "What are we doing?" And someone just said to me, "Just push out B bomb, just fly at them. We meet them there. We meet them there. If they're done, we just take control of their spawn." And then they weren't there. We took control of their spawn, and then there was one time where the Queen popped camo, and I never heard 4 people just say run. We just ran, and then we ran, and then they wasted camo because we knew he had camo, so we couldn't have went with Matt because he would have just camoed out. We couldn't have went to A bomb because he would have just camoed out.
Yeah.
So it's better us to just meet them in the open area.
Well, so that was another interesting point, right? Is you've just played Optic 3-2, you lost. You've come in against Epsilon. You win 3-2. Like, you must have just expended so much energy after those 2 games. Like, just the amount of like the level of play you're having to play at, the kind of the mental concentration you're having to play at for 10 consecutive maps at that level with so much on the line. Do you think that kind of led in a little bit of the fact, going into the Luminosity game, a team you've won and lost against this year, like it must have been like, oh my god, again? Or were you still riding high?
At that point we was like kind of like still kind of like in our zone, and then the maps came up and it was like, what the like? It was a team we kind of like. It was like the only team left in the bracket, but up to it that we really had to put our 180% in.
Yeah.
Like everyone else, we could not like put our foot off the gas, but if there's 2 teams you have to just consistently turn up against, like round in, round out, every life, it's them 2 teams. And then we got given the maps, and the first 2 maps was just a 2-0 down straight away. I think it was a breakout.
Yeah.
And then it was I don't think it was the S&D. It was the uplink. The uplink was our worst uplink map that we hadn't won for age. It was
Was it Precinct?
Precinct, yeah. So we knew we had to win the S&D because then the hard point was our best hard point, and then the S&D was a good S&D map for us. We knew we had to win that S&D to go anywhere in that series, and we lost it just narrowly. So
yeah. And obviously that was you guys out of the tournament. And I think the worst thing for me, looking from the outside, was the fact that all the European teams that made it into the bracket were only eliminated by a European team or Luminosity. Like, Luminosity carved through the European squads.
Yeah, their first 3 rounds of European teams, it was when it confused us.
Yeah.
So they literally wiped out every last European
Yeah,
team.
obviously you took down Epsilon as well. It was like, gee,
Yeah.
of all the 4 teams that made it to the bracket, like, they all fall in that narrow part, and they all get completely torn to bits. But obviously, you came out of that one, and you guys obviously weren't happy with that champs placement. It must have felt like you could go so far, because you were the last European team in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it must have been What was your feeling after champs? Obviously, it was gutting. No one was going to pretend it was anything else, but kind of, what did you take away from champs to kind of work on for next time, or were you like, this may be our best opportunity? What was you kind of going through your minds in the days and weeks afterwards?
I think once the tournament was over, I don't think we was reflecting on the Luminosity game because the maps that were given to us, we was already behind anyway. Like, as much as we would try to play over it or try to say no, it really was down to the maps we got given. Unfortunately, we was bad at 2 maps in the whole game, and it became down to them 2 maps.
Yeah.
And but I think Trey wasn't in a great place mentally, and it was a bit hard to really call if we really made a change or not.
Well, okay, let's talk about that then, because you did end up making a change.
Yeah.
Kind of brings us into your team for this year. Now, there's a lot of speculation going on to begin with. A lot of rumours surrounding your team when Trey eventually left, and that was something I heard about quite a while before it happened, because there was the rumours going around you were going to do it. People weren't sure whether you were going to do it or not. Obviously, feelers had gone out from various teams to find out where everyone was dropping, and obviously it ended up being 0 left you, and then there was that gap for a little while, and people were wondering who's filling that gap. Swanee was rumoured at one point, which a lot of people thought was kind of a risk that you guys wouldn't take at that opportunity. And then obviously, we heard about the Fnatic issues going on, and Tommy kind of come in. How did you guys come to that decision to pick Tommy back up? Because you've basically got the Millennium team, but with Bants instead of Swanee right now.
I don't think Swan was never in the speculation of picking him
that's
up.
interesting. I think that might have just been public rumour then.
I think everyone in our team had 2 players they wanted to pick up. And then it was a big speculation for so long of where we go.
Were you guys speculating? Because I know everybody in the world was speculating who on earth you were going to take. Was it a big debate in your team then?
Yeah, it was like an ongoing thing for like 2 weeks. No one it was just like a bad thing where no one was really sure of who to get and whatnot. And then just one day we really came to it and let's sort this stuff out right now. Who we get in, and
you're like, locked in.
Yeah, and then we still speculating, and then we finally just said, let's get Tom in, and then we got Tom in.
Was it a case of you weren't sure who was going to be the best fit, or you weren't sure who you could get? Was it because it was like, even now, I still believe there are some teams that haven't announced themselves for this next game, especially in Europe, that haven't kind of fully revealed their teams yet. Was it one of those things you weren't sure who was a free agent or what people were doing? Like, I know Mill just announced a change, but they said they weren't changing, and then they did. Was it the same situation with you guys?
No, like, our situation was different because we could have got anyone. Like,
that's fair.
Like, literally not even just not even like bragging or whatnot, because obviously it's nothing to do with that. But literally every person that was on the market or not even on the market was touchable. They was a message away. So
well, yeah, I mean, I suppose you got those benefits, right? Is that your team is a team of incredibly talented players that pretty much everybody respects and would love to play with. Not only that, but you've got a great org behind you. Talking about the team you've been in for a while, Splice. You seem to have kind of found a little bit of a home there.
Yeah, Splice is definitely just a great org. Like, Marty just runs a tight ship. There's no lying. I think that's one thing that esport orgs really tend to get wrong is, like, if you're gonna say something to players, make sure it's done If it's
Hmm.
not done, make sure there's a valid reason why it's not done. I think that's where a lot of esports orgs get wrong is they tell players things that they know they can't come through with,
Hmm.
or just out of their depth, but they then when it doesn't happen, they try to cover the cracks. But you're not honest with them, you're not gonna get the respect out of them. Whereas if Marty says something and it doesn't come through, he's got a explanation and a perfectly reasonable one to come with it, which is what you need from an org, transparency. And Marty holds his hand up when he's done something wrong as well, which is great from someone that's in a power position to really come down on your level and say, I'm sorry. So,
Well, I think that's kind of a great thing, and certainly there needs to be more orgs like that, right? You know, we've definitely been about a bit, and there have been some orgs that just don't deal with it, even like an adult at most
yeah.
points. But let's talk a little bit about, you know, what was maybe the main factor with Tommy then going into his actually. What was the defining moment where like, this is the player we need? Why was that decision made, and what swung it? Like you said, you had the option of basically anybody. Why Tommy?
I think it really come down to like most people I played with most people, so it really come down to like how they felt,
Hmm.
how their personal experiences with each player came across, and everyone had their ups and downs. Like no one's perfect,
Yeah. Well, you spend a lot of time
and
together, right? You're bound
y-
to have ups and downs.
yeah, exactly. But when it come down to who was the biggest risk, not like who had the least risk, not even the least risk, like who had the least risk but the best reward out of, and it was kind of like Tom's not perfect, no one's perfect, but who can become that will really be able to perform as good as we can.
Hmm.
And obviously Tom on the ground, I mean,
Well,
IW is not for everyone. I think even everyone had their bad year.
yeah.
Tom didn't have an exactly dog year, but didn't have the best. But obviously there's certain things that were going on in his time that he really couldn't put his full focus into it. So
Hmm.
you have to take everything that you know into consideration, and we just felt like Tom was probably the best fit for us.
Hmm. Did it also help when, you know, they did that show match in World War II? He was absolutely shredding.
Nah, nah, not really. But like we know, Tom. Like
Yeah.
Tom's that guy that can do that. So we already knew that. But that really didn't sway us in any way. Like we already, I think we already said Tom's gonna smash this little show match they have on. But I mean, was he playing against Courage?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
No, he was playing with Courage or
Well,
against.
I think he was. I think it was again. I was trying to remember now what the teams were. That doesn't count. Jack got carried. It was Jack. It was Jack filling in a few holes here and there. He was okay. It was one of these ones where I was more just impressed just how much he was just went ballistic in that game. But
Yeah,
yeah, let's kind of talk about your experience with WW2. Now, I'm guessing you played the beta.
yeah.
What did you think of the game? You know, we're 10 days away from launch now. A few more days when this interview actually comes out. But what did you think when you started playing it? Your experiences with it? How did it feel?
I definitely liked it. Definitely a good game. I think there's a few issues that I need to sort out with I think it was I can't remember what they called it, but the little perks you have. Like you have one perk, I think it
Oh yeah,
is.
divisions and stuff, and
Yeah,
the first
division.
trainings and stuff. Yeah,
So I think there was like one with dead silence, one with attack, and one with flak. Like
yeah,
dead
big choices, right?
silence, especially when people got these bad boy headsets,
Hmm.
it's kind of like bad to let people sound or, and it's especially when you're playing stuff like Hardpoint. Like S&D's fair enough, like Counter Strike has it. S&D
Yeah,
no dead silence, it's tactical. But when you've got some like Hardpoint and CTF where it's not a
you like,
situation where you know where everyone is,
yeah.
but you use your headset and you know where everyone is. It can't do that.
Hmm.
A respawn game mode, you need something like dead silence
Yeah, it's
or
okay
some.
in like some of the games where like it's like so loud you don't hear them like until you're right up on them. But you get those lulls or those, especially on things like CTF, which we're going back to next year. That's going to be crazy if someone can slip past or get a kill just through listening.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if they've sorted that out. I haven't
Hmm.
really heard anything about it. But I think that's one thing they probably need to look at. And other than that, the maps we got, I think there was one bad one. The rest were fine.
Hmm.
But I felt like it was quite a
What, what,
smooth game. Sledgehammer did probably the best Jackback
hmm.
game, so Let's see if they can put our boots on the ground.
What do you think about the grenade situation? Because I pointed out on Twitter, I said we haven't had grenades be so prevalent in years, because we had trophy systems, you had the movement systems to keep out of it. Like on AW, you didn't need to do anything; you could just burst out the way of it. Ghosts was probably the last time it was really kind of that beneficial. What do you think about nades coming back in? Were they too powerful, or was it just more an adjustment period and then they'll kind of be back normal again?
In the nades are definitely, the tacticals are definitely, what's the word, like you kind of need them, because let's put it like this: if I've got an AR and I've got you trapped with a sub,
Yeah.
if you've got a tactical, that's your way of getting out of the situation.
Yeah.
If you've got no tacticals or they mean nothing, you kind of messed up, and that kind of like makes it as where the subs are less relevant than the ARs. It kind of like puts subs or just team play back into it.
Well, this is the thing that I've said. Because people have been calling out for grenades to be nerfed, and I said you got to remember, you're back on the ground now. When you go to a cut, or you go to and there's someone covering a lane, you can't try and go up a wall or come out at a weird angle on them. You're going to have to go head to head most of the times. And nades, that's where nades, you're right, tacticals are very beneficial. The fact that you could push someone out of that position without having to try and rip them off a chest high cover all the time.
Yeah, I think it's definitely just some people just came out of IW. It's just kind of a new fresh breath air, but I think definitely after people have probably played like Ghost or MWR over the break, they'll definitely come back and they'll see they were probably just talking rubbish, and nades and stuns are definitely viable in boots to the ground.
Okay, awesome. All right, that kind of nicely wraps it up. Thank you so much for talking. I know it's been quite a long one, this one, but we have a lot of history to cover with you, because you've been around for quite a long time. I wish you all the best with Splyce this year. Any kind of shout outs or things you want to say at the end of this interview?
Just anyone who supports us, just keep supporting. I hope, I'm happy. I'm not happy, but I'm pretty sure we'll pull off an amazing year for Europe again. And just keep in touch with us on social media. On our journey this year, I'm definitely gonna be one to remember again.
Awesome, and I just want to say a quick good luck to your kind of nominated for console player of the UK player of the year. Sorry, you've been nominated at the Esports Industry Awards. So I want to say good luck with that one. We'll know in a couple of weeks whether or not you are successful in taking that crown. But I think just being nominated is a massive thing anyway. So congratulations for the nominations, and I kind of wish you all the best.
Nice one, Bryce.
All right. Thank you very much. And you can, of course, keep up with Madcat on all the social media and stuff in the description below. Go give him a follow. I'm sure he's going to have a massive year. Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like if you want. Leave comments in there. Who else should I talk to, and what other questions should I ask? We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.